Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop. This week we're going to be making a new drawer for my mitre workstation. Roll the intro. So one of the things I'd like to do in the drill charging station is to utilise this space. This unit is one of the first things I made before I even had a YouTube channel, and it's okay, it's coming apart a little bit in places, but this edging strip was completely not the right strip to use. It falls off, it doesn't stay there, and actually this, see what I mean? Actually this part here is very unused space. So the plan is going to be to take all this back, reopen the space, and then put a door on the front here. And I'm going to have a door here with a drawer at the top. So the plan is to put a drawer here, and when you pull the drawer out, all of the batteries will be in there. Because the size of the batteries inside the charger, some of them are quite big, I need quite a bit of depth, but I don't need it to go back that far. So I'm going to plan to put a drawer in here and then put a door on the bottom so this unit looks a lot neater, and then at some point I'm going to go back and readdress these drawers on these units because they're not fantastic, to be honest with you. So that's the plan. The first thing I'm going to do is to build a box that's going to go in there. Okay, so the plan is to put in a little undermounted drawer in that space that I've got in the main worktop unit. So to do that, I've purchased some Bloom under drawer mounts. Now they've just arrived thanks to Amazon, and I've used these before in the other drawers on the other side of the unit, and they are really good. I mean, they are really expensive, don't get me wrong. I think these two drawer slides are something like $12.95. I'll put a link in the description, and I've gone for deliberately small ones because literally that's how big I want the drawer to be. So if you've used these slides before, you'll know how fantastic they are. They are brilliant pieces of kit, and that's why they cost the money that they do. So I've got the undermount ones, the ones that go on each side. So you have the two units that go like this, this one side and this the other, and they've got a little hook on the back that hooks in to the back of the drawer. So when you've got the drawer unit all up and running and it's in, this unit hangs in the back of the drawer unit, and obviously the drawer is only potentially going to be that long. I'm going to make mine a little bit longer than that and just offset these back a little bit, but they are the best drawer slides in my opinion that you can get. So I'm going to fix the two drawer slides in like so, and they also come with these closing clasps that go on the bottom of the actual drawer that you make. So when I make the drawer, I need to allow enough room for this to sit underneath. It goes in the gap. So when I do it, I'm going to raise the bottom of the drawer probably, well, that's a good at least a good 3 or 4 centimeters. So I'm going to allow for that. And they've also got individual adjusters. I'm not sure if you can see those. They've got individual adjusters on them which let you make either adjustments up or sort of back or forward. So they sit on the bottom, and these are what hooks into these. Get the right one in the right way. So these hook on here and they allow you to put the drawer in and out. So these are going to go in to my existing unit. Now, how am I going to get them level? How am I going to, I can't drag the unit out and do it any differently. So I'm going to use this, which is my Parkside cross-line laser. It's like a leveling laser, and I'm just going to attach it probably to my table saw, and then it should give me hopefully exact equal lines either side, and I can use those to locate and drill in my drawer slides. Now I have noticed something off camera when I was just clearing off the strip. This unit is really not straight. The central strut down the middle isn't straight. the right hand side isn't straight, and in a minute when you see, you'll see how wonky the drawers are. And I don't know how, a lot of this I think was just hidden by the frame that I had around it, but really this whole unit could really be doing with taking apart and putting back together again. As I said, it was one of the first things I did, but I'm not going to do that today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this now and have a look and see what sort of level it's giving me. When I'm happy with the size, then I'm going to hook up the drawer unit, the drawer sliders on either side, and then from there we can make a decision on how deep I want the drawer to be and whether I'm going to have it flush or how I'm going to do it. So the first thing to do is attach this laser, and let's just have a look at what we've got to work with. Okay, so I think I've got the perfect thing to attach it to. Let's just have a look and see. Yeah, it's pretty level that way. Yep, so all I'm going to do is just fix this, if it fits on to the end. And obviously, because of the way that the nature of this, it will eventually level itself off. To be honest, it should be pretty level because I haven't used it since I put it away in the box, and it was very level last time, so it shouldn't matter anyway. It will self-level itself. So let's just put the laser on and hopefully it's still working with a bit of luck. Okay, so it's giving me a green light on the top, which means the laser has self-leveled. And I can see from the unit at the side there, I can actually see the line on there. Let's just put this on the line and see how level it is. Yeah, absolutely spot on. So the laser level is level, and it is giving me an exact gap on either side. So I'll switch the camera around in a minute, you can see it, but I'm happy with that. It's looking pretty good. So let's have a look at the depth I've got of my new unit. Okay, so apologies, I'm not entirely sure how much of this that you are going to be able to see, but if you can see, I have got the laser level, which is here on this side and here on this side. Now it's harder to see the laser level over on the left hand side. I can see it, but it's very faint, whereas on this side it's incredibly strong. So it's giving me the right height. What I would like to do now is just use a piece of wood as a marker, and I'm just going to put a little gap down the side here so that I know that's how much I want to inset my drawer. And I can tell you now, just from looking at this, this is not level. I can tell you straight off. I think the gap at the back here is going to be a lot different to the gap at the front. I can see this outside edge piece of wood as it goes back is sort of not straight. So I've got a funny feeling that I'm going to have a box that's going to be wider at the back than it is at the front. And obviously that's going to be a bit of a significant problem. It might mean that we have to shim a piece of wood in. I'm not quite sure yet, but let's put the blocker in here and mark up and see where we're up to. Okay, so I'm hoping that you can see the line on both sides. And what I've done is I've just cut two very thin pieces of wood, and these are literally going to sit here, butted up to the sides. Let's make sure they're level. Yep, so they're just going to literally sit here, butted up to the side. So that's the first one. Again, just making sure it's nice and level. And then the same on the other side. And it doesn't matter, you know, where they're going really. They're more for placeholders than anything else. So I have got a little bit of flexibility. Okay, so now these two pieces of wood are in, it's giving me the opportunity to put in the runners. Now, I think I'm going to put the runners just underneath just underneath here to give me more depth, and obviously to give me a bit of clearance from the shop vac as well. So I think I've got just enough room to put them on. So what I'm going to do is put them on, mark up where the holes are, and then I'm going to pre-drill the holes and then put in the screws. So let's do that now. So hooking these drawer slides on was actually a really easy, straightforward process, and obviously I pre-drilled everything, even though I was only using smaller screws, but I just wanted to make sure 100% that I wasn't going to get it wrong. So it is pretty easy, but it is quite awkward, I'm not going to lie, and as you'll see, there's the screw that I'm using. It is quite awkward, and as you'll see, it took quite a bit of sort of finagling, and of course I also had the added issue of I kept going in front of the laser, so I couldn't quite exactly see what I had to do to sort of get it straight. But once I'd pre-drilled the holes, I got them fixed in okay, and they were very level with the red light, you know, the level light. So I was pleased with how it turned out. So when I'd done the one on the sort of right hand side, I just repeated the exact same process for the one on the left hand side, and the one on the left hand side was a lot easier to fit. I think that was probably just, you know, I was used to it. I haven't actually fitted these for quite a long time. So just exactly the same process as the right hand side, and as I said, it was a little bit easier to fit this one on. I think I got into a bit of a groove by then. Okay, so I've just attached the two drawer slides, as you can see, and I think it's pretty clear from this. You should be able to see that they're not level. So even though they're both laid back, and I've measured and I've checked, they're both laid back exactly the same amount, the actual drawer slides aren't level. This one is protruding by exactly 5mm more than this one. So that leads me to believe that there is more of an issue here than I thought there was. Now I've got two choices here. I can live with it as it is, and just basically fettle it off the front of the box, which is doable, or I have to move one of the drawer slides either back or forward, and actually that drawer slide's not sliding in very well. They are my only two options really, but as you saw, it was actually quite difficult to get that drawer slide in. So my gut reaction is I need to think a bit, because what I'll have to do is move this back 5mm, this block back 5mm. I'll have to move the block back 5mm, re-secure it, take all of that off, and then put it all back on again. And that is going to be quite a feat, I think, because you will have seen in the video how difficult it was to start with. So I'm just going to take a minute to decide what to do, but I think my gut reaction is either pull that, well, I'm going to have to push that one back. I can't see any way around it really. It is going to have to go back, and the only other thing I've got to be careful of is just the clearance at the back. I've literally got no more clearance between there and there, and on these boxes, I mean literally the box will sit forward from that anyway, so it doesn't matter, but I've just got to be very careful. So I think we're going to have to take this off and move it back 5mm, and then see if that changes the situation. So this was just the readjustment of the right hand slide to try and level up the sides on both sides. So I was just fixing the drawer slide and just tightening one of the screws, and an absolutely disastrous moment happened. I'm not sure if you can see, but this whole side panel has completely dropped off of the unit below. It's sort of given way, and I can see the back braces at the back have also popped out of where they should be. This whole side of the unit has just sort of come apart, which I'm really surprised at. And I have to be honest, I'm not really sure what the best thing to do is. If I manage to get it back on, which I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do anyway because it's actually trapped on that unit. If I manage to get it back on, I'm not going to be able to secure it. I think I'm going to have to take all of this off and take this unit out and repair it, which is going to take quite a long time. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff on it, but I don't want to leave it, well, I can't leave it like that because A, it's not safe, and B, it's going to be impossible to use it. So I think I'm going to have to take this unit apart, and you might be able to see there, it's completely, all the pocket holes, this is attached with pocket holes. The pocket holes have all popped out, they've all sort of come undone. Yeah, a bit lost for words really. So I'm now going to have to take all this apart and fix the unit and then put it all back together again. Okay, so I've now got the unit out, and it is actually quite fascinating. Two really important things. As you can see, everything is sort of all fallen apart. But the other interesting thing is, this is my cyclone that was in the bottom of the unit, and this is attached to my miter saw, and it's empty. There's absolutely nothing in it at all. So the cyclone hasn't been working, which means that all the dust that I thought was collecting in the cyclone has actually just been collecting in the shop vac, which is a bit weird. I'm not quite sure why that hasn't worked, but it hasn't. And the second interesting thing is, this is all of my dust extraction system that I built into it, which I use for things like my sander and other things like that. This all seems to be working because there's dust in all of the traps, and this is the one that's attached. The miter saw attaches here, should be sucked down, blown across. This goes into the cyclone, and now I'm wondering whether I've actually got the cyclone configured properly, if you see what I mean. I'm wondering if I've got the tops the right way round, because this at the moment plugs into the side of my cyclone, and the vac plugs into the top, and I'm wondering if it should be the other way around. But in terms of the unit, it's completely come apart, even to the point where the worktop on the top has come off of the wood. So I'm not 100% sure what's going to be the best strategy here. I think I might have to try and take the worktop off and literally start again from scratch, because this dust extraction is probably the only thing that's still attached. But bit of a disaster. So first thing I need to do is repair this, and actually now I've got it open, I can actually see I didn't do a fantastic job in putting this together, if I'm honest. I can see quite a few mistakes, and these the slice of piece of wood here, the brace with the pocket holes in, I've actually blown the pocket holes out. So I think I'm going to need to replace that piece of wood no matter what happens. But I actually haven't screwed it in from the side at the bottom. I've just used pins here, which was clearly a mistake, because something like this, it needs to be screwed in. So First thing to do is repair all of this, and then we can go back to the build.
A few moments later.
Okay, so off camera, I corrected that. I reseated it. Hopefully you can see it's now 5 mil back further than it was before, but weirdly, it still doesn't look right to me. It still looks like this one is sticking out more than this one, but I've measured it. When I push this back to the very back and I measure the distance from here to the end, and there to the end, it gives me exactly the same distance, 19.5, but it just doesn't feel like that. It is level, not as level as it was before, but pretty good. And then when I pull them out, again, to me, that still doesn't look level, but it actually is, and I'm just wondering if it's like an optical illusion. But it's done now, so the most important thing now is to get the measurements, exact measurements, check the box is wide enough, which fingers crossed it will be, and then we can start making the drawer. And I'm also just going to pop off now. I don't need these two spacer blocks, so let's get measurements and do that now. So when I'd taken some accurate measurements, I was able to get the plywood and just cut it up into the right depth, you know, from what I'd measured. The other thing is, I know I mention this a lot in my videos, but the price of this one sheet, it's not even a full sheet, it's like a little mini sheet. It was 16 quid nearly, and I know the price of wood at the moment is ridiculous, but I mean, that's really ridiculous, and you're looking at nearly £40 for a full sheet of plywood, when I'm sure before the pandemic they were a lot cheaper than that. But anyway, I got out my trusted Parkside track saw, and it made light work of the plywood. Again, I've mentioned it multiple times, but it really is a fantastic piece of kit, that Parkside Parkside track saw. It does exactly what I need it to do, and it went through the plywood with no problems at all. And again, I mentioned that in previous videos, there's my custom Aldi dumbbell weight that I bought for a recordly low price. So that held everything down. It just enabled me to make accurate cuts for the plywood and get all of the 4 pieces. And I actually had a little bit of the plywood left over, so I'm going to celebrate that and use it for something else. I might even go back to my running medal holder, which was a previous video. But when I'd cut it all, I got all the 4 bits, and then it was time to take them to mitre saw. So for the next stage, I just set up a really simple stop block. That's my drilling piece of wood. Because of the nature of my mitre saw setup, I've got a gap between the edge of the mitre saw and actually anything under about sort of 20 centimetres I just can't set a stop block up. So what I do is I set the stop block up and use that piece of wood as the sort of the exception, or the extra bit, sorry, of the stop block. So I set it up and then I was able to get 4 cuts, and I thought they were all perfect, but what must have happened is the wood must have shifted, and as you see there, I had one slight edge that was slightly out, so I just took those couple of mil off. And then the next thing was to go over, and this is just a test piece, to go over and put in my grooves. This is where the bottom of the drawer is going to sit. Now when you watch this, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice the burning, the smoke coming out of the end, and I think this is because I did this in one cut. I didn't want to do, you know, half the level and half, and you can see how burnt the wood is there. I mean, it doesn't worry me, to be honest, because it's just the time that was more important. So that test piece of wood done, then I went on to the actual sides and front, and you can see chucking a bit of smoke out there. But like I said, the time was the more important thing to me, and I could have done it in 2 passes, you know, raised it,
raised it again. It's about a 4mm groove that I'm putting into these pieces of wood, but to be honest with you, by this point I just really wanted to get cracking, so I just sort of pushed it through and just put up with the wood burning on the inside. And to be honest, it wasn't on all of the pieces of wood, it was worse on a couple than the others. But my little router table as well, and this is something I made that I haven't put in previous videos, and I don't know why. This little MDF contraption you can see allows me to do my dust extraction, and it also enables me to sort of put a sacrifice in, as it were, and you can see that the router is actually sort of inside that gap. I then measured up this pegboard wood, which is the bottom of my drawer. There is a reason why I put this. I mean, number one, it's incredibly strong for quite thin wood, but eventually I'm going to put my battery chargers in here, and I wanted to allow some air flow, which is why I specifically picked this piece of wood. I could have picked something else, but I just wanted to pick this bit. So when it had been accurately marked and measured, it was time to take it over to the table saw. So I ran it through the table saw, and it was at this point that I realised that I hadn't lowered the router bit, so I sort of did it over the top, which isn't the most ideal thing to do, but to be honest with you, a cut is a cut, and the cut that I finished with was exactly the size I needed. So you can just see there, I'm just checking it. Now, having done that, I did realise that it wasn't exactly the right measurement. It just needed a tiny little bit being trimmed off. So I did that. You can't see it, but there's probably a 2 or 3mm gap between the blade there and my fence. I was very careful. I was going to use a sacrificial fence, but to be honest with you, it was a very, very quick cut through, and it wasn't that close, so I knew I could get away with it. And then I measured again, and it was exactly the size it needed to be. So the next thing to do is just hook the box together. I did this off camera, but I did pre-drill all of the holes just to make sure. And obviously with plywood, you know, when you're using plywood, there's a very, very good chance that it will split. And I was so lucky, nothing split at all. So all of the holes that I drilled, all 8 of them, I was very lucky and I got away with it. So I didn't have any splitting anyway. But what I did have was some of the holes a lot closer to the edge of the box than I would have liked. So what I had to do on a couple of them was just vary. I didn't put them right in the corner because I knew that I need the pin from the drawer slide to go into the back. So I deliberately moved up some of them. The other thing is I chose not to glue this, and the reason why is if I want to take this box apart in the future, just a few turns of the electronic screwdriver and it's back to just pieces of wood. I didn't want to make it necessarily that permanent. If at some point I want to take it apart when I do put the drills in it, it's easier to do. So after that, I just followed up with my what I'm now going to refer to as useless air gun. I don't think it's the gun, I think it's me, but it does about 3 or 4 strikes and then it leaves the head proud. And also, I don't know if you saw it there, it fired 2 nails at the same time, and I'm using good quality, expensive tack-wise nails, so not sure what's going on there really. When I'd done that, I offered up the drawer just to make sure, and much to my delight it fitted, but much to my utter disgust, it did make me realise how uneven that unit is. Even though it's been fixed, and you'll see when I push it in a minute, it really is bad on the right hand side. I really should potentially work on another unit, but it is such a big integral part, and not only that, it would cost an absolute fortune now to make that. I made this when plywood was still relatively cheap. So what I'm doing now is just getting it all lined up so that it's in at the back and in at the front, and then I just hooked a couple of clamps on, and I did this because I didn't want it to move position when I marked underneath. Now, how you can do this, there's lots of ways of doing it, and Jason Hibbs, he's got a great video series on making cabinets where he explains how to install these blooms, and he just basically bashes the drawer back and forward and the hooks sort of just make a little dent, but that never worked for me. So I crawled underneath on the dirty floor with a flashlight, and I just marked where the pin was going, and you can see there that I moved it back and forward a little bit, so that's even more important to make sure that you secure it with a clamp, which is what I did. So what I did was I literally just ran a pencil along the pin. I made a little mark on the back of the unit where the sort of centre of the pin was, and then that would give me a good position to drill out the holes. And as you can see, I used an 8mm drill bit here, but it's very, very close, probably more than I would like it to be. And I could have made the draw unit a little bit wider, but it worked. It didn't break the sides, and then I was able to offer it back up. And when I did, I was really pleased that the two pins just slid straight in. And obviously it's moving about a bit because there's nothing holding the front, but the draw was really good, really where I wanted it to be. And you can probably just about see there before I took it off the horrendously big gap on the right hand side of the unit. So I was just me hooking it back in again now, and the next stage was to fit the front parts of the drawer slide. Now, it was about this point that I suddenly remembered to fix the two wooden blocks that would go underneath. This is for the other part of the drawer slide mechanism to fit into, and obviously because I've used that wood, I needed to put a little spacer block in. I'd actually remembered that I needed to do this, and I'd cut the blocks earlier on in the day, and I completely forgot. This was actually quite awkward. They were quite awkward to sort of fit. As you can see, I'm struggling there getting the screw in, but basically I just pre-drilled a couple of holes directly through the holes that are in that bottom, and then just fix the blocks on with just some screws. But to be honest with you, I didn't go mad. I only put 4 screws in because it's not going to be under a lot of pressure, and it's not going to be under a lot of tension this either, because there isn't going to be a huge amount of weight in the drawer, to be honest. But once I'd got them on, I was then able to offer it up and then slide it on, and I could begin the process of putting the rest of the drawers on. But it did take a while, this bit, to get it all nice and level, because I wanted to make sure it was exactly as it should be. So I then crawled on the floor, excuse the sort of dodgy camera angle, and you can see there how you install them. So I just literally offered it up, marked out where the 2 holes were, then I pre-drilled the 2 holes, offered it back up, and then I just used some very small screws to attach it. And obviously that wooden plate that I've just put on is 18mm thick anyway, so I had a little bit more, you know, space that I didn't need to worry, but I didn't want to put massive screws on and risk, you know, breaking through the surface. So when I'd done the left hand drawer, I then went on and duplicated the exact process on the right hand side to fit the part of the drawer runner in the same way. And as you can see there, you can see it a bit easier there, the 2 sliding dials that you need should you need to adjust it. But thankfully I didn't need to do that. I'd left them set as they were when they arrived, and I didn't need to make any adjustments. Okay, with that done, it was time to take the clamps off and to see if it had worked. And lo and behold, apart from the sliding mechanism, it did work. And I think the one on the left just is a little bit slow. I don't know what it is, but actually it worked perfectly, and I was very happy. And all of the connectors had worked, so I'm able to take the drawer in and out without any issue. And as you can see from that gratuitous close-up, almost exactly perfectly level, which is great, but it also makes the rest of it look not so good. So this is the drawer front, and what I'm using for this, I deliberately chose to pick a piece of wood, and it's that coloured wood that I've got from a well-known big box store, which was it's the stuff they put on the worktop basically. So I just attached it and ran it through the mitre saw to get it the right length. It wasn't too much out actually. I didn't have to take, as you'll see, I didn't have to take much off, but it was just a bit wider than the blade. So I'd set up a stop block so that I was able to turn it over the right way, and then I could take it to the table saw and just trim it down to the right size. And again, luckily, not much to be taken off this side. Then I hooked it on with a clamp and just made sure I got it absolutely level, and then attached the second clamp just so I had, I had it nice and firm, so that when I did the screwing in from the back, it was nice and firm. And then I obviously pre-drilled everything, did the 4 drill holes, and put all of the screws in. I think I put 6 screws in total, might have been 4 in total, but these were bigger screws, not massively big, but because obviously I didn't want to break through the surface, but they were big enough that they were able to take the weight of the drawer, because that wood that I'm using for the face of the drawer is really nice wood actually. It's got that grey sheen on it, but it is nice quality wood. It's thick. It must be about 15 mil. It's bigger than 12, but obviously smaller than 18. But it's quite nice wood, and I'm lucky I've got quite a few bits left. So when I did that, the next thing to do was to attach the handle. I did this in a slightly different way, I think, to normal. I just measured it, got a line, sort of drew a sort of U shape, and then I just held up the handle to use as the sort of template. Drilled holes through both sides, slid the screws through, and attached the handle. And at that, the project was done. And to be honest, by this point, I was really quite relieved.
Okay, so I'm at the end of what feels like an epic build, all to put this drawer in. So overall, am I happy with it? Yes, I'm very happy with it. There are a few problems with it, but I think considering what I went through to make it, I've got to put that down as a win. So the first thing, the most important thing, is I didn't realise until I've just fixed it on that there's actually a chip in the bottom of that drawer. Now, these drawers aren't going to be the permanent facing. I'm going to redo all of this and put something else in here, I think. So this is sort of a temporary measure. So from that point of view, I'm not too worried about that. The other thing, which is the main issue, is if you look, the gap around the edge is not even anywhere near close to being straight. This side, it is at the bottom, but obviously not at the top. Across the top, it's not too bad. But here, even though I've refixed it, there is a massive gap on the side here. And when the second drawer unit, the second unit at the bottom, is done, what I'm going to do is try and correct a lot of those issues by putting an edging or a banding around it. And I think with that, I'm going to be able to hide a lot of those potential issues with a bit of luck. So that's the first sort of thing. And the second thing, and I'm sort of loath not really to do or say too much about this, is this side closer doesn't seem to be catching and closing as well as the other side. Now you can adjust them, which is what I'll spend some time doing, but I want to do some proper research on that because I've never done it. I know you can, but I've never done it. So overall, considering what I've been through to get here, I am really pleased. I'd give it a sort of 7 out of 10. Not perfect, but a lot better than at one point I thought it was going to turn out to be. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please can I ask you to subscribe, like and comment, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you are a regular viewer, thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care, fellow woodworkers.